program update. First off, letting people know that with the rollout of coming April 1st of some new codes, the training is going to be rolling out for the building officials for the new 2021 residential code, the electrical code, and the plumbing code. As part of this, as people are aware, in the past, the division's training for building officials was sort of limited because we had it in person, and space was limited for being able to attend the trainings. This code cycle, the trainings are going to be online, so anyone will be able to check out the code training that's going to be given for those three codes. In addition, of course, we are rolling out the new 2021 commercial energy code, letting people know that that has gone through the Construction Industry Energy Board, and that is moving forward for an April 1st rollout. A reminder to everyone that the residential code and the commercial code are going in effect April 1st of this year, but the boards have approved a 6-month, shall we say, grace period, so they go into full effect without any look to the past code starting October 1st of this year. One thing I wanted to point out for this group as far as commercial energy code, some training and code change pieces that are available currently through the U.S. Department of Energy at the Building Energy Codes program page. If you'd like, it's energy codes, that's plural codes.gov. You'll find a U.S. Department of Energy page website. There's a resource center available there, and there are specific training documents that they have on a page, and toward the bottom there are specifically commercial requirements, commercial building training materials for both ASHRAE standard 90.1 2016 and 90.1 2019. In the 2019, it's a PDF file that's available for you to look at. You can look at the, there's a specific document for mechanical changes and items they have in bold red or changes from the 2016 to the 2019 code. So these are things that people can look at right now. The division will have an overall training for building officials on the 2019 code, but in addition to that, it's our understanding that there's going to be a lot of additional outreach from some of the other organizations, including Oregon Department of Energy, Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance are going to be coming out with other things to help people on the contracting side for compliance with what will be the 2021 Oregon Energy Code that will be really in full final effect come October 1st of this year. So be looking for those things coming forward. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Acting Chair Fanning and Andy Bolton with the division. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that. I see communications, we have none. Appeals, none. Unfinished business, none. No unfinished business. New business. Andy, do you want to address that?
Sure. Thank you, Acting Chair. This is Andy Bolton, Policy Analyst of the Division. We have a statewide alternate method to look at. Statewide alternate methods are approved by Building Codes Division in consultation with the appropriate advisory board. The board is asked to review and approve technical and scientific facts of the proposed alternate method. If the statewide alternate method is adopted, building officials shall approve the use of materials, designs, or methods addressed in the statewide alternate method. This does not require designers to use the statewide alternate method, nor does it limit building officials' authority to consider other proposed alternate methods. The proposed statewide alternate method today is intended to allow use of newer, more environmentally friendly refrigeration methods, and we have Mark Heizer here available to add some more information on the technical details of the proposed statewide alternate method.
Thank you, Andy. Again, for the record, Mark Heizer with the division. This was discussed at the last meeting. When it comes to refrigerants, of course, within the mechanical code, there are references to safety standards for both when a refrigeration room, machinery room is required, for maximum allowable quantities before you have to determine a machinery room. In our current code, we're referencing older versions of standards, 15, 13, and 34 for safety and use of refrigerants. The statewide alternate method is to allow the latest versions of these two standards for use in the mechanical code. What happens is that as we're moving away to more new levels of refrigerants, there is some equipment that is currently using the latest under the most current standard ASHRAE standards for refrigerant safety. And these would, by bringing in the language in the statewide alternate method, this equipment and other equipment that may come out over the next year will have gone through the process for making sure that the refrigerants that are in this equipment are safe, and also setting sort of the maximum level that can be in an enclosed space without having to require a refrigeration machinery room. So I believe some of the equipment is splits, small mini split systems are using these advanced refrigerants. And this will allow their use, not really what's off the shelf already available today to the mechanical industry. If there are any additional questions, we would be happy to take those now. But again, the sort of request from some of the manufacturers of both equipment and the refrigerants to bring these in. As we all are aware, the length of the refrigerant table has been expanding and expanding and expanding, and this is keeping up, or trying to keep up with what's happening actually out in industry for new refrigerants that people have. So if there are any questions, Chair Fanning, I'd be available. Otherwise, I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Klein. I had a quick question, if I may.
Go ahead, Andrew. This is Acting Chair Fanning.
Sure, thank you. Mark, thank you so much for putting that together. We really appreciate it. You had mentioned toward the bottom about the UL 240 standard being in the residential code. I'm wondering if this board has the authority.
Ms. Klein, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure, I'm sorry. Andrew Klein, representing Chemours. I'm wondering if we can also just amend what you put together slightly to ensure that the IRC also updates its reference to 2-40 to the most recent edition as well.
Chair Fanning, can I?
You please respond.
For the record, again, Mark Heizer with the division. Through the residential code currently, this statewide alternate method would apply to the residential code. The language in our residential specialty code does say that when not addressed in the residential code itself, you would be going to the mechanical code. So it is available for use for both residential and commercial structures via that method. So the statewide alternate method can be referenced for both commercial and residential structures, just to clarify on that.
Okay.
And then in the next residential code, we will be able to bring that language in. Thank you.
You would be able to put that language in, I'm sorry?
Again, for the record, Mark Heizer with the division. In the next version of the published version of the residential code, we would be bringing this language in that hopefully it will also be in the 2021 IRC quite possibly. And if not, we will continue to make sure we have alignment between the mechanical and the residential codes. But through this alternate method, there's no need to take this to the residential board as well. This will be available for anyone doing mechanical work in the state. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew Klein, thank you so much.
Thank you both. And thanks, Mark, for that clarification. Moving on through our agenda.
I have a question. This is Jed Sherman.
Go ahead, Jed.
And I'm not sure when the right time to raise it. I do have a couple of concerns, and I'm not sure when to raise them or how to raise them. So I too look for guidance whether that now is the appropriate time or.
I believe it would be. Go ahead. What are your concerns?
Okay. All right. For the record, I am Jed Sherman. I do work for the IATMO group, which is publishers of the Uniform Plumbing Code, or the UMC. And so I've been following this A2L refrigerant debate with interest for a couple of years. And I'm not, the expert on this necessarily, but I have also consulted with some of IATMO's engineers on this specific issue and having a look at this statewide alternate method. Advancing with new technology and methods is really vital for a progressive society, and sometimes we have to balance this with caution. And so here's the concerns or the things that I and some of my colleagues at IATMO have. There was significant opposition at the IMC hearings to ASHRAE 15. IMC did update the standard, however, did not accept the A2L provisions that were proposed. Coming up soon, ASHRAE 15 is actually going to be split into two different parts, ASHRAE 15 and ASHRAE 15.2. And obviously at this time, since those have not been developed yet, we don't know what those two documents are going to look like until after they're finished. ASHRAE 15 requires the use of detectors as part of the equipment located less than 1 foot above the floor and in a direct line of sight as well as close by. Presently, there's no listed or third-party certified detectors on the market. If you can find detectors, the available detectors are unlisted and they're expensive. Installation of unlisted products is not advisable, in my opinion, because it generally could put users, occupants, or consumers at unnecessary risk. That's why we have third-party listings. The UMC does address A2L for machinery rooms, however, not for human comfort applications. You see that in section 1106.2.5. The UMC is going to wait until ASHRAE 15 work is done before it considers full inclusion. IATMO understood the complexities and the uncertainties with the use of A2L, so the technical committee was compelled to wait until more research is available and for ASHRAE to complete its work on the revised standards. The UMC actually initiated a task group to investigate this whole issue further and is seeking input from experts and stakeholders, and some of the findings will be discussed at the upcoming hearings in May. I guess my recommendation is that we should refine this item further before it's implemented, and I want to offer that IATMO's engineers are quite willing to be a resource in this process and to assist with improving it, just to avoid some of the concerns that we have. Thank you.
Jed, thank you very much for that. Do you have any response to that, Mark?
For the division, Mark Heizer, mechanical and energy engineer. Yes, we currently, in the IMC language that we currently have in the 2019, in our current code, section 1106.5 does address special requirements for A2L refrigerant machinery rooms and about refrigerant detection for these rooms. That is something that is actually currently in the code and would be not having significant change in what we're looking at now. what is before the group. This would be a separate item to address, potentially looking at what is happening, but the national standard that we're looking at that is contained in code, we're looking at the ability to, this statewide alternate method is really allowing the latest version of the refrigerant lists and refrigerant safety standards that are published that Jed did mention. It's allowing the use of the latest versions of these. If there is additional code requirement we might want to look at for, yes, machinery rooms, for large industrial of A2L refrigerants, that might be something to look at. The current, the intent of this alternate method is to actually get all of the current refrigerants, whether it's A2L or other types of refrigerant, and the referenced in the latest list. So in our current code, in Chapter 11, we have something like 4 pages of refrigerants. The major impact is to have all of the latest refrigerants that are being used in current equipment available. And when you're looking at, yes, refrigerants for space conditioning, those would not be allowed currently. There are some of these refrigerants that are used for space conditioning in small, say, split systems that would not trigger machinery rooms under Section 1106 of the Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. The smaller systems that we're looking at can't be installed without this work currently. And there are also other low environmental impact refrigerants that aren't, that fall under other things other than A2L. So which is a low probability, low flammability, that would not be, that would also not be allowed to be brought in for use in our current code until we update to the latest ASHRAE standard. So yes, if we can work with, look at how the safety side for larger refrigeration machinery rooms is progressing, but just we do currently have the best available model code language in the OMSC from the national model code in Section 1106.5. If there are any further questions, be happy to take those. And Mr. Klein might have other background, but that's why we're looking at the latest reference standards, bringing those in currently to be able to have that equipment used, which is primarily of what's existing equipment is smaller equipment that wouldn't fall under the Chapter 11 mechanical refrigeration room side.
Mr. Chair, this is Stephen Spletzer from Chemours. Might I respond to some of the comments that have been made?
Yes, through the chair, please do.
Okay, so just to let everyone know, I'm Stephen Spletzer of Chemours. I'm also a voting member of ASHRAE 15 and ASHRAE 15.2, and I was also a member of the IOPMO A2L task group. First, IOPMO did put forward a proposal that will be heard at the hearings later this year to update the UMC to be consistent with the language in ASHRAE 15. Second, there was a mention of ASHRAE 15.2 and that standard needing to be complete. Technically, what's in 15.2, those requirements are being taken from ASHRAE 15 and UL 60335-2-40. So those requirements are already captured in the standards that are being proposed here. What ASHRAE 15.2 would do is simply remove the residential requirements from those other standards that are under consideration that are complete and put them in one place where it's easy to find. But those requirements from ASHRAE 15.2, as I said, are being taken from the ASHRAE 15 and UL 2-40 standards that are complete. One last item on the detectors that were mentioned. The standards require that you have integral detectors in the equipment that would be installed. And what happens is that the when the product is listed, the detector is part of the product listing. So when the equipment comes out, you don't list the detector by itself, you list the whole system. So when the equipment is listed per the UL 2-40 standard, the detector that was mentioned is covered.
Thank you for that. I know you wanted to speak, Chris. I just wanted to ask Jed if this satisfies some of your concern with the statewide alternate method.
It helps, yes. I just want to be, I want to run this by my colleagues as well. Some of the responses, thank you, Mr. Speltzer, and appreciate your perspective there and your working on these committees and so forth. That's the way that these things get done. I definitely would like to run some of this past my colleagues, my engineer friends at IATMO. And again, I had sent them a copy of the statewide alternate method, and it was, they who raised some of the concerns from their perspective. They would like to offer their assistance in maybe rewording some of it or just slightly modifying it to really hit the goal that is intended here.
Thank you, Jed.
So this is Andrew Klein, Chairman Fanning, if I may.
Yes, you may.
So I think Mark hit the nail on the head just perfectly when he said this opens up the code with the state-of-the-art language to be able to safely use refrigerants. A lot of the safety issues have been debunked. It became very political, on the IATMO stage there. And as Stephen mentioned, IATMO put together a work group and even put in their own code change for this upcoming cycle in order to accomplish the very same thing that we're doing right here. So language is ready. There are backstops. It doesn't require anything. It just opens up the stage to be able to use the state-of-the-art refrigerants. Thank you. And Andrew Klein, representing Chemours, for the record.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris, did you have something?
Yes, sir. Chris Miller, Mechanical Board. Through the chair, I've got just a quick question for Mr. Heizer. Just so I understand correctly, on the commercial side, when it comes to machinery rooms, there are certain refrigerant volume thresholds relative to the volume of the room that need to be complied with. And just as a point of clarification, do those thresholds remain the same across the board, even with the new environmentally friendly refrigerants, considering the old refrigerants are likely still approved for use in a machinery room?
Mark, feel free to respond.
Through the chair, thank you, and Chair Fanning and to Board Member Miller. My understanding is that I don't believe there were any major revisions in safety quantities. I believe it was just the expansion of the numbers. So to bring in the latest version, if standard 15 or 34 found that there was a need for triggering at a lower level, this would, or at a higher level, it wouldn't override the current code. It would just be under an alternate method. So if let's say the trigger for refrigerant X went down for the trigger for a refrigeration room under the alternate method, you could apply under this alternate method and, avoid the trigger of having to do a refrigeration machinery room. On the opposite side, if the trigger was more restrictive, it wouldn't be a mandatory application at this point. So you could continue with your current design. So that's how the statewide alternate method would work for you under this. So as far as concerns of what's in the new one, it's really giving options under the most current versions of these tables that do get brought into the model code. So you can expect to see in the next version of the International Mechanical Code, a couple extra pages of refrigerants on the list and potentially some modifications to the numbers, but I have not rechecked all 150 some odd to make sure any of the numbers change, simply due to that under how this would be applied is it's an optional methodology that lets you use the latest standard when you select to do it. The local building official has to take that as the ability to use that method. So that's how it would apply to contractors today. It wouldn't change your minimum that's in the published code. How about that?
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Heizer.
Was there any other discussion in regards to the statewide alternate method on this? I would open it up to our board members, whether we want to adopt this or to table it. Jed brought up that ASHRAE is meeting in May. Our next meeting is in June. So I would look for input from our board if we want to vote on this or table it until our next meeting. I would also, I don't see that Jay Hansen has joined us, and I thought that he was going to be joining the meeting.
Again, through the chair, Mr. Fanning, I move that we table this decision until the next board meeting, so we can learn more about the discussions that happen at these conferences in May.
Do we have any question on that?
Walt Cottle, I second that motion.
Thank you, Walt. Is there any discussion on the tabling of the statewide alternate method? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone?
Yeah, this is Ted. I'm on the building official position on the mechanical board. I just wanted to caution on this, that this is something that gives the contractors extra ability. You know, if the SAM is adopted, then building officials have to accept these refrigerants. So a lot of the technical conversation, I'm going to tell you, went over my head here, because it's building officials, we can't know everything, but we rely on things like these SAMs to help us make some of those determinations. So I understand that you want to take a look at this and study it more closely, but this is something that gives you flexibility in the meantime. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other discussion on the tabling of this until June? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, this
Yes.
will have to be a roll call vote, sir.
You please guide me on this. I'm just trying to do the best I can that I was thrown into it. So
Yes, we appreciate that.
Thanks everyone for their patience with me.
Would you like me to call the roll for this vote?
I would, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Walter Cottle.
Here, and I support the motion.
Mr. Derek Frazier.
I support the motion.
Mr. Chris Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Jed Sherman.
Aye.
Mr. Ted Zook.
Nay.
And Acting Chair Eric Fanning.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
So we'll discuss this again on the agenda at our June meeting. I would hope that Jed, being part of IATMO, will be able to provide some more insight into this. I'm going to do some investigating myself. I think we, as board members, should all do that. Moving to our next portion of our meeting, announcements. There are none. And I would call for adjournment. Am I doing this right?
Yes,
Melissa?
sir. If you would state the time, please, Acting Chair.
Yes. The time is 10:10 a.m.